समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The 16-hour marathon debate in Lok Sabha on Op Sindoor ended today. Rajya Sabha got started today. This will go on. However, the Rajya Sabha debate speakers are different, obviously, but the lines there, the talking points are very similar. So we are focusing on Lok Sabha, which I think is in any case, one may be the senior house, House of Elders, but really what matters is Lok Sabha. And the Prime Minister spoke today. The debate ended with his long speech going into almost 2 hours. Now, what is it? What is it that each side said? If I start summarizing that, it will take an hour, and I am sure since the morning today and all of yesterday, you've been watching this on your TV channels, and you will continue watching clips all the time on loop and on YouTube and elsewhere. My challenge, therefore, is to do what we promised to do on this show, which is to cut the clutter. Now, many people have spoken. People from each party have spoken along their party lines, or each alliance have spoken along their party lines. That is taken as read. Within that, let me try and structure what happened today and yesterday. In Parliament, in a parliamentary debate, when it's a question and it's a contentious question, if it's a question of, if it's a debate on voting over or Manrega or something like that, then everybody gets on the same side and gives their suggestions. No, but when there is a contentious issue, it is always prudent to structure it in terms of what was the challenge from the opposition and how did the government respond it, or what was the challenge or questions from the opposition benches, and how did the treasury benches respond. Let me therefore first begin with Rahul Gandhi and add also something that Priyanka Gandhi said alongside, because these then set out the questions around which the debate has taken place. So Rahul Gandhi, first of all, theme of Rahul Gandhi's attack was that while the BJP claims that they gave the armed forces a free hand, they did not give them a free hand. In fact, rather than giving them a free hand, they sent them out to fight with their arms tied behind their backs. And what does he base that charge on? He says that both the defense minister and the external affairs minister have said that just as the attacks were over, the attack started, Indian air attack started at 5 minutes past 1 a.m. on 7th morning. That's the intervening night of 6th and 7th. So attack started at 1:05, 5 minutes past 1, and these were over in 22 minutes, which means 1:27. That is the exact timeline that the Home Minister also gave this morning, Amit Shah. He says within minutes of that, at 1:35, the Raksha Mantri said, and the External Affairs Minister has also said, that India reached out to the Pakistani side, that is the Indian DGMO, tried to contact the Pakistani DGMO to say that we have done whatever we had wanted to do. We wanted to only attack terrorist centers, infrastructure. We've done it. We don't have any interest in attacking your military or military infrastructure. So let's be done with it. He said it was a big error, and to simplify it, he said it's a bit like आप किसी को घूसा मारे and then say, I've hit you only once, I will not hit you again, and expect that the other guy will not hit you. In fact, the other guy will see it as an expression of weakness that you've done it, and you are then asking for ceasefire. That look, I have done it. Now you don't escalate things. Just absorb it and be done with it. And he says it's naive to think that such a thing shall pass, and that is the reason he says you did not let, because you told the Pakistanis that you will not attack their military infrastructure and air defense installations. That's how your Air Force suffered attrition. And he has then spoken the unspeakable so far in our political debate, which is the losses of jets by the IAF. And in fact, he even put a figure of 5 to that's not a threat that anybody picked up. However, he said that you did not, the charge was militarily, operationally, the charge was that you did not take out the Pakistani air defenses. And he said, if you go into defended airspace, then aircraft will be lost. He left it at that. The fact is that about 36 hours later, when Indian Air Force started taking out Pakistan's air defenses with those Harpy and Harop Israeli drones, after that, when on the night of 9th and 10th, more on the 10th morning than on the 9th night, when Indian Air Force carried out a big retaliation on Pakistani air bases, it is true that Pakistan's air defenses were silent or switched off by then, because by then, suppression of enemy air defense or destruction of enemy air defense, SEAD or DEAD, had been carried out. Rahul Gandhi's charges that you did not carry it out. Not only did you not carry it out, so you sent out your aircraft in defended airspaces, thereby exposing them to danger, risks, but also that you told the Pakistanis that you had no intention to carry it out. That is how he justifies his charge of sending out your forces with their arms tied behind their backs, not with their hands free to do what they wanted. Then he says, if the Prime Minister has half the courage of an Indira Gandhi, because a lot of the attack from the BJP side has been focused on Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Gandhi. And I will come to this in a bit. Also surprisingly this time, on Lal Bahadur Shastri, also he's not been named as such. But I will come to that in a couple of minutes when I talk about what the Prime Minister said. And he says, and how does he know that the planes were lost? He is quoting from Naval Attaché, Indian Naval Attaché in Indonesia, who, speaking on a seminar on the air battle in Op Sindoor, said that I disagree. Another officer from Indonesian Air Force, in fact, made a presentation showing that India lost this many aircraft, Pakistan lost this many aircraft. In fact, that presentation showed more losses, aircraft losses on the part of Pakistan than India. But he also said how many aircraft lost and which type. So Indian Naval Attaché at that said, look, while I may not agree with the number given there, but yes, we lost some aircraft, but that was because of the constraint placed by political leadership in not attacking Pakistan's military installations, etc., etc. I am not quoting his exact words there. Rahul Gandhi quoted his exact words. That was his evidence. And he said, I just told you that he brought in Indira Gandhi. He said if Narendra Modi has half the courage, 50% of the courage of Indira Gandhi, he will stand in this parliament and he will say two things. One, he will say that no jets are lost. And second, he will say that Donald Trump is a liar. Because he said Donald Trump has said 29 times that he mediated or he intervened and got India and Pakistan to stop the fighting. So if India had given the armed forces a free hand, why did India stop fighting? Because Donald Trump told them to stop fighting. And if Donald Trump did not, then Modi ji should stand in this parliament and say that Donald Trump is a liar. Then he makes three other important points. They are important points in a partisan sense from the opposition's point of view, but they are also important points substantively, because these are points on which there can be a debate. There may not even be a disagreement on the side of the government or the forces as well, forces, military analysts, etc. So he says, first of all, that China-Pakistan linkage is not just a linkage, it's now a fusion. And he says it's the greatest failure of India's foreign policy that they've not been able to keep China and Pakistan distant. That said, I will add one line of opinion here to say that that's always been the case. No Indian government has ever succeeded in breaking this linkage. Different governments, different prime ministers have tried working in different ways. Some have tried to improve relations with China. Some have tried to improve relations with Pakistan to break out of this triangulation. But this is the eternal strategic conundrum of India's neighborhood. That is something that no Indian leader has been able to address since 1963. 1963 is when China and Pakistan formally came close together. 1966 onwards, their defense cooperation started. Cooperation means basically supplies from China, and now they work very closely together. Rahul Gandhi, however, says that Modi government has failed to disengage them, and now they become a fusion. It's not a two-front war, it's a single front war with the two countries fused together. He says there's been a fusion between them, and he mentions that with Chinese help, Pakistan Air Force has set up an institution called CENTAIC, CENTAIC, which is Center for Artificial Intelligence and Computing. This, he says, has helped Pakistan Air Force become a fully network-centric Air Force. And those are the tactics that Pakistan Air Force used with India. That is something I suspect that the Prime Minister was referring to later when he spoke, where he said the Congress leaders pick up their talking points from Pakistan, because this issue has been buzzing a lot in the Pakistani defense press as well, and also defense press internationally, which is seen to lean more towards Pakistan, especially the Pakistan Air Force. The next point he makes is that if you deterred Pakistan, you are saying you deterred Pakistan. Raksha Mantri said, we have deterred Pakistan. If we deterred Pakistan, then how come Asim Munir, the man who planned and who led the Pahalgam attack, how come he was invited for lunch to Donald Trump's house? And that's where he raises the level of rhetoric a bit and thumps the desk, saying PM has not said, how dare Trump invite Munir to his office. That's when the speaker says, listen, this is property of the house, don't break it. That was it. That was a little moment in that debate. His point, however, was that India has not been able to deter Pakistan. On the other hand, Munir has now reached the White House and he's being feted by Donald Trump, which is a setback for India. And not only has Trump invited Munir to his office for lunch, but also no country in the world has condemned Pakistan. Everybody has condemned terrorism, which, and I'm adding this, which is like motherhood and apple pie, but nobody has condemned Pakistan. Rahul Gandhi says, your true objective of the government was not to enhance national security, but to enhance and protect, or rather protect and enhance Prime Minister Modi's image. He says, don't sacrifice armed forces and security forces for petty politics. Have the dignity and humility to understand that they have to be kept above your image, your politics, your PR. So image, politics and PR. Priyanka Gandhi is the only other one we'll pick from the Congress today. It was as if between the two siblings, they had decided that one will attack the defense and foreign affairs aspect and the other will attack internal security. So Rahul Gandhi attacked defense and foreign affairs as we just now synthesized for you. Priyanka, on the other hand, talked about intelligence failure, and she said 26/11 was a failure, but see what happened after that. Our Chief Minister in Maharashtra, Vilas Rao Deshmukh, he resigned. That happened a few weeks later when very insensitively he was caught walking around the Taj Hotel with filmmaker Ram Gopal Verma as if studying the plot of a forthcoming film. And that is what led to his ouster. I'm adding that. And also R.R. Patil, the Home Minister then in Maharashtra, who had said, बड़े-बड़े शहरों में ऐसी घटनाएं हो जाती हैं. Such things happen in big cities. He lost his job. The Home Minister at the center lost his job. And then she says, and it's a loaded comment, that the Home Minister is still sitting in his chair. And she says, people at Pahalgam trusted you with their safety and you failed them. Again, she answers a charge that Amit Shah made in the morning about Indira Gandhi, and other BJP leaders have also made it. Priyanka said the only time her mother cried was when her husband and her father, Priyanka's father, died. Amit Shah in his speech had said that he can produce evidence that Salman Khurshid had said this, which most likely he had, because those days particularly given the way UPA was structured and given the level of discipline in the Congress party those days, many Congress leaders were more concerned about their vote base than about the government's image. Those were also the days when, I'm adding this, when Digvijay Singh attended the launch of a book called 2611 RSS Ki Sazish, 2611, a conspiracy of the RSS. So he also was present at that book release. Many Congress leaders at that point did many things that keep continuing to come back and haunt the Congress party. Nobody speaking from the government, no member of the CCS, in this case, Defense, Home and External Affairs ministers or the Prime Minister, addressed the questions that the opposition raised about any losses for the Indian Air Force, except Rajnath Singh referring to it very obliquely. That was on the first day. Rajnath Singh said that we launched an operation. We ended up achieving all our objectives fully and entirely. Now you're raising questions about losses. That's a bit like a kid goes for exams, does very well, passes with flying colors, gets the top marks, but you start getting worried about whether his pencil broke while he was writing his exam or a pen was lost. That is the closest anybody came to any Indian losses or equipment losses in these 3 days of fighting. Amit Shah's speech was quite remarkable in that he talked in detail about Operation Mahadev. Now, Operation Mahadev is not religiously named. I mean, everybody thought it's religiously named after Lord Shiva. It is not. Mahadev is the name of the peak near which this area is located. That's why Op Mahadev. He gave a kind of minute by minute account of what happened, starting with 22nd of May. That is a month after Pahalgam attacks, when he said the first tip-off came to Intelligence Bureau. Now, this is also unusual. I have not heard any functionary of the government in public, especially in Parliament, give credit to the Intelligence Bureau for anything, right? So Intelligence Bureau in this case was mentioned that they got a tip-off about these people, and following that tip-off and developing those leads, officers of the intelligence agencies zeroed in on the Dachigam area. That is where then these people were tracked with drones, and finally they were cornered and they were killed. Amit Shah then, because everybody knows that there is skepticism from the opposition that if these people were to be caught, and if these are indeed the Pahalgam killers, how come they had to be caught only this morning, right? This looks too perfectly timed to be authentic. So he addressed that by saying that they picked up, he said, we expected skepticism, so we picked up the cartridges from their rifles and sent them overnight by air to Chandigarh to the Central Forensic Science Lab, where already cartridges found at Pahalgam, at Baisaran Valley, they were present, and also cartridges from another attack which took place at a tunnel, at an under construction tunnel on way to Zojila Pass. That is Gagangir incident. So all those cartridges, he said, matched, and they matched with the barrels of the rifles as well, thereby confirming, in his view, in his argument, that these were the terrorists who were involved in Gagangir. Some of them were caught on the construction site, CCTV cameras as well, and also for Pahalgam. That is the forensic evidence that he produces. He also says that the pictures were shown to families of many of the victims, surviving members of the families of many of the victims, women and children obviously, and they also confirmed that these faces were all right. There will be skepticism about that and questions, but that's an ongoing thing. Now, how is it that Prime Minister Modi responded to this? His response, I would say, can be summarized in one line of verse that he quoted. He said, मुझे बहुत शेर व शायरी तो नहीं आती, लेकिन एक शेर मैं बताऊंगा, and this is half a शेर, not even a full शेर. That says, लम्हों ने खता की, सदियों ने सजा पाई. That the blunders I made in moments, or my moments of blunder, brought upon me punishment for centuries. And then he gives a full account of whatever has happened since India became independent, 1948, how he thinks India allowed Pakistan to control POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. How did India lose Aksai Chin to China? Although he doesn't mention China, nobody mentions China, and that is also a charge that Rahul made, that nobody mentions China. So he also doesn't mention China, but says Aksai Chin was lost by Nehru. And then he comes down step by step. Step by step, he says in 61 to 63, there were negotiations with Pakistan under Nehru, where large territories in Jammu Kashmir area were meant to be ceded to Pakistan, and a peace zone or a line of peace was intended to be built. And then something unusual happens, that he attacks things that happened in Lal Bahadur Shastri's time without mentioning Shastri. One of those Amit Shah had also mentioned, which is India returning the Haji Pir Pass after 1965 war as part of the Tashkent Agreement. Now, Prime Minister speaks about that, but he also speaks about the Kutch dispute, which took place between April and July 1965, which the Shastri government decided to take to an international tribunal and accepted that tribunal's order, which Prime Minister Modi said ceded 800 square kilometers of Indian territory, including Charbet, to Pakistan. It's the first time I've seen this set of BJP leaders attack the Shastri government. In fact, Shastri almost deliberately and very carefully has been excluded from all criticism of Congress governments in the past, to the extent that I think sometimes that in the course of time, Lal Bahadur Shastri will be added to the BJP RSS pantheon of national heroes after the Sardar Patel, Madan Mohan Malviya, and many such leaders who had started out in the Congress party. First of all, the Prime Minister indirectly answers the charge that we did not leave any surprise in our operations. And he says Pakistan knew from day one of Pahalgam that we were going to retaliate. There was no doubt about that. He also asserts that Indian armed forces were given full freedom, and he says 22 minutes is all it took to avenge 22nd April. Pakistanis now know that there is no place where terrorists can hide. No country stopped us. That is indirectly an answer to Rahul Gandhi's challenge to say that Donald Trump is lying. He says no country stopped us. Pakistanis now know that there is no part of Pakistan where we cannot reach. Our first surgical strikes of 2016 said we can cross LOC. Balakot showed that we can go after terrorist infrastructure deep inside Pakistan, Pakistani mainland in this case. And now we have shown how much deeper we can go. So we can now reach any place in Pakistan. And when this operation was over, the Pakistanis knew our goals were limited initially, but when this operation was over, the Pakistanis knew there was no part of Pakistan, no corner of Pakistan which we could not hit. And Pakistani air bases have been hit so badly that some of them, and I quote him, are still in ICU. On the night of 6th and 7th, importantly, he says, as India carried out the attacks, Pakistanis could do nothing. I think that's an important line, and that's a line that will be discussed and debated and maybe disputed. Then he explains what happened and what brought about the ceasefire, and did Donald Trump had anything to do with it. So first of all, Jaishankar had said earlier on that there was no call between the Prime Minister and between the Prime Minister and Donald Trump, between the day of the Pahalgam attacks, when Trump called the first time to commiserate with Prime Minister Modi, until June 17, when he called the Prime Minister in Canada to explain why he could not meet him there at the G7 summit. Between that, there was no phone call, there was no conversation. So May 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there was no conversation between the two. The Prime Minister says that on the 9th May evening, I was at some meetings with military commanders when I got messages that Vice President Vance was trying to reach me. So when I reached my office, I called Vice President Vance. He made it a bit casual. I called Vice President Vance, bhai boliye aap kya keh rahe the? And he said they had the information that Pakistan was about to launch a very major attack on India. And he said if they do so, then they should be prepared for a very tough response. He said, goli ka jawab goli se dunga. I'm not sure he would have said that to Vance, although if he did, I'd like to know how it was translated. Maybe some archivist tomorrow will find out. But he said that our response will be much tougher and Pakistan should be prepared for that. Then he says that night on the 9th, that's a disclosure, Pakistan launched upwards of 1,000 projectiles in India. That is missiles and drones. And all of them, he said, were intercepted in the air like straws. Tinke ki tarah unko tod diya. They were intercepted like straws, which means the entire attack failed. After that, the Indian Air Force, the Indian forces decided to carry out the retaliation, and that is something which is proven by times. I might do one more episode of Katak Tata just to put in perspective and context those dramatic 87 hours of Op Sindoor, because so much time has passed and yet a lot of it is in haze and a lot of it is cluttered. Then, of course, he says India's technological capability was showcased. A lot of the world is studying it. Our air defense is being discussed in the entire world, which is most likely true because Indian air defense so far worked quite incredibly well. He says the Pakistanis made a big deal of their supposed attack on Adampur. So the very next day, I myself landed in Adampur and the world could see that there is no damage to that airspace. The Prime Minister also said that while those from smaller parties may not understand it, but a party like the Congress, those parties jo vyavastha ka hissa rahe, which means those who have been part of the establishment, they should know that many decisions have a context. And I am surprised that they are also raising these questions. That, I think, is an important point. He also makes another very interesting sideways point. He says a Minister of State, somebody who functioned as a Minister of State to do with defense in a Congress government, came to see me. This is after he set up the CDS, that is Chief of Defense Staff position. He came to see me to congratulate me and also to say that this was his idea. Now, he didn't say who it is, but I can tell you who it must be. It must be Arun Singh. Arun Singh was MOS. In fact, he had the designation of MOS, Defense Research and Development Organization, MOS DRDO. But Rajiv Gandhi at that point, his cabinet did not have a defense minister, so Arun Singh pretty much functioned as his defense minister. He had fallen out famously or infamously with Rajiv Gandhi. That was a big public fallout over Bofors. And later, subsequently in 2007, in a two-part Walk the Talk with me at Binsar in Uttarakhand, where he used to live, he had talked about that fallout in great detail. After his estrangement with Rajiv Gandhi, VP Singh, who came to power riding the Bofors horse, he had set up a committee to look at the restructuring of higher defense organization. To head that committee, he had invited Arun Singh. And that committee had recommended the setting up of the office of the Chief of Defense Staff. And the Prime Minister said that one MOS came to meet me to thank me and to also congratulate me for doing this. So he was rubbing it in to the Gandhi family there. Of course, then there were many other things, including he said that Congress governments wanted to give away Siachen Glacier. I'm not sure if that is checked out by facts. The established fact is that Indian Army took over Siachen Glacier in early 1984 under Mrs. Indira Gandhi. And the only time there was discussion of some kind of an accord with Pakistan where Siachen may be demilitarized was under the VP Singh government. That government from the outside was supported by the BJP. That government also, fortunately, was very short-lived.